Welcome back to Chamber Exchange, brought to you by our sponsor, Bank Hometown. Very pleased to have with us in this segment, Josh Goodman, who's the president and founder of Pinnacle Unemployment Services and Consulting. Good to see you, Josh.
You too, Tim. Thank you.
Just saw you the other day. We were passing by each other over at Fuel America over on Grove Street.
Yes, that's where my offices are.
Yeah, 100 Grove Street. Well, unemployment is in the news when people talk about working, the economy. We just referenced a little bit of that in our last segment in terms of some of the things that people look at in the health or the challenges of economy, unemployment, underemployment. But you work specifically with companies on that issue of unemployment. So maybe you could talk a little bit about Pinnacle Unemployment Services and Consulting, of which you are the president and founder.
Yes. There's a certain point where a company hires employees and they're expected to perform their job and et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, at points in time, these employees are no longer following the rules, following the policies. Things get confrontational, and this is where companies need help. So we put together a series of services that really step in, do training for supervisors and managers, and with that we go through the company handbook. We make sure the policies are up to date and in compliance with state and federal regulations so that the company is doing the right thing. They're following the laws and they're making the right decisions when it's time to go through a separation.
Right.
And we don't always want these, but they do happen and they do occur. When those separations occur, the employees, or in this case former employees, have the right to open a claim for unemployment.
Right.
But they're not always going to be eligible. And there becomes a conflict where the company can argue to not pay that claim and remove those charges, and we step in and represent those companies in those situations.
And people who may be regular watchers of the show have heard me do this before, but this analogy, but if you're providing a good or a service as a business owner, you're focused on either making the widgets or delivering that service. Mm-hmm. As a business owner or manager, you've also got to be mindful of the various things that you need to comply with. And unemployment law is kind of mandated by both the federal and state level. The employer contributes into a pool of funding, which we'll talk about in a second. So it's complicated. There's legal implications, and so if you're, as an owner or manager, focused on making that widget, delivering that service, it would take a lot of time to become a subject matter expert on unemployment, and that's what you kind of come in and help companies with.
That's right. We work really hard. If we just look at the period of time, the pandemic, the new laws and regulations that were coming out, let's just take Massachusetts, for example. Something new, something different all the time. And when a company is focusing on survival and trying to put out their product, just as you said, they cannot keep on top of all of these different changes that are going on. So we step up, we make sure we're on top of all of these different, a whirlwind of laws, regulations, and we make sure that the companies are notified of what's going on, what's changing, and once again, we make sure they're in compliance.
And and certainly employees, giving situations of departure, how they leave a company, have rights, but business owners and have rights too, because they're contributing into this fund, and so you kind of help kind of guide them through that, and also you talked about going through employer manuals and things. I mean, there's also like an HR compliance element to the business as well.
There is. There's an HR compliance element. And the reason we have to do that is because we look at the laws. In Massachusetts, we have Mass General Laws 151A. All of the unemployment regulations tied into that, what the employer has done when the employee is still there. So the unemployment regulations are going to look at what progressive discipline did the employer use? What did they say? What interactions did they have with the employees? Was there harassment? Was there all of these different things? And the companies, sometimes they're just not aware of exactly where to go, what to say, what to do.
Right.
So we have to add the HR compliance element of the services so that we follow it all the way through the separation and we can have a successful argument with the state when they file that claim.
Right. And that's a good point that you just make, and I want to make clear. I mean, there may be situations where an employer may not fight or argue against a claim.
That's right.
For unemployment. But there are situations, and we know there are sometimes situations where people may take advantage of a situation, and an employer may have a counter argument to say, no, we don't believe this person's eligible.
That's right.
Which would otherwise be a cost for us.
That's right. That's right. So all of that being said, sometimes they want to protest the claim, but they can't based on the laws. In other words, in its simplest form, a layoff, these people are going to be allowed to collect, and there's no argument against that.
And you talked about kind of the law. We've seen, on a regular basis, the law change in Massachusetts. Some surtaxes are, put on, and there's a conversation right now in Massachusetts because of an error that was made that would potentially be an additional $2 billion cost across the employer community.
Yeah, large numbers.
That's being looked at as we speak. No decision's been made, but again, that's a cost in terms of the employer.
Yeah, and the issue is for employers, unemployment is a dollar for dollar system. So the more that people collect, the more they have to pay. It's not a welfare system. Based on what you said, right now there's a COVID-19 tax that's been added on to the unemployment tax. And
is that federal or state?
That's state.
State. Okay.
That's a state mandated tax on top of the unemployment tax. So it's very costly to employers, and there's also a general fund that they have to contribute to as well. So they see these costs come into their company. There's no auditing. So part of the services that we provide, we audit, we look at the tax rate, and we make sure it's accurate, and if it's not, we can appeal, go before a board in front of the state, and argue for credits.
Got it.
And this is something that companies usually don't do and don't look at.
Yeah, no, great point and great service. So this past year, in August, 8 years in business.
Yes.
How's it built, and what kind of prompted you to start the business?
Well, it's something that I'd been doing for a long time, and I noticed that there are other companies out there that do what I do, but they seem to be more of claims processors, taking the claim, being a liaison between the company and the state, and just taking information and providing it to the unemployment system.
Yeah.
And I just didn't believe that that was an efficient method to turn over claims and process claims, even if it's in a large volume. So I thought I could create a service which does education for the companies to show them this isn't just a termination, a claim, and we submit information to the state. I've created something where there's a tremendous amount of education and consulting, and at that point the companies become smarter, they're following the laws, they're following the regulations, and it's a more fluent way of protesting these claims.
And potentially saving money and or reducing their exposure financially or otherwise.
That is the one and only goal.
Yeah.
I thought with this system that I've put together, we can ultimately save these companies a large amount of money that they couldn't do before.
Right. So Josh, if there's a business out there that wants to learn more, get in touch with you, how might they do that?
Sure. They can give me a call, 508-425-6991, or send me an email, jgoodman@pinnacle-usc.com.
Good. Well, good stuff, Josh. Thanks for sharing that. And I think any business out there would be wise to look into this in terms of how they are in compliance, reduce costs potentially, and as we talked about, maybe reduce their exposure at some point.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim.
Good.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, we're going to come right back for our final segment. Stay with us.
These days, you've got your hands full in life. That's why we help you bank simply and securely with tools like Face ID and Touch ID. It's why we make it easy to make purchases on the go and get cash back while you're at it. Why we help you quickly deposit checks wherever you are. And it's why we lend a hand with sending and receiving money right from your phone. So even when you're on the move, you can manage your finances. Bank Hometown. Unlock your potential.
Worcester, a city with heart, history, and promise. A hub of innovation in life sciences, education, and healthcare. Home to multi-generational families, first-generation citizens, and next-generation baseball and hockey greats. Home to great parks, world-class museums, theaters, and restaurants. Worcester, the place to visit, to invest, and to call home.